Welcome to the Dadlit Pod, the literary podcast for people who had to give up a cherry Trans Am for a minivan and still resent you for it. I'm your host, Dan Roberts, and tonight I'm here once again with Craig Terlson, also known as the Turtleinator. Craig Terlson is author of the Luke Fischer crime novel series, the most recent of which, Sayulita Sucker, came out last week. Craig, welcome back to the Dadlit Pod.
Dan, it's been so long. It feels like years since I've seen you. I don't know, man. The Terlinator. The Terlinator. Yes, the Terlinator. It's true.
Who
It's
came up
true.
with the Turlinator? Is
I
that
think it was
Ken?
Ken.
Did Ken? Yeah, that seems
Yeah,
like something Ken would
Ken
do.
Gray. Ken Gray. He
Yeah.
loves to put my head on things, and I think he put me on a Terminator one, and he just posted it, and I says, "This is crazy," So yeah, Terlinator. It works. Terlinator. Turley. I'll take it. Whatever. I don't care.
By the way, Dadlit Pod listeners, the Twitter banner above the Dadlit Pod, recently designed, illustrated by Kenneth Gray, and we're very appreciative for it. It's beautiful, and it has immediately invited just nothing but jealousy from other Dadlit authors who want their own Kenneth Gray joint posted up there. By the way, Terly, I presented to you Luke Fischer as a Craig Terlson joint, and you had no idea what I was talking about. And I'm
No.
wondering how many Spike Lee movies have you seen?
Oh yes. Oh geez. Yeah. But then right away I knew because right away I'm a huge Spike Lee fan. Right
Yeah,
from she's got to have it. I saw She's Got to Have It in a small theater in Toronto, and I just went, oh man, what is this? And then yeah, I love his films. He's amazing.
yeah. So tell me about Sayulita Sucker, your new novel.
Yeah. Well, and speaking of Sayulita, I learned recently when I was in Mexico how bad my Spanish is, and also how I never say anything correctly. So I don't know if it's Sayulita, Sayulita. I really liked how it sounded like, of course, see you later, sucker,
Yeah.
right? And so it just really, I had the title for this one really early on, and in this book, which is book four of the Luke Fischer oeuvre, I think our buddy our buddy Tom. I can't go through a podcast without mentioning Thomas Trang, who right now is working undercover somewhere. He's probably crawling through some ductwork and doing some spy stuff because that's what he does. And I'm every podcast I'm going to go on, I'm going to out Thomas Trang as a spy. I'm sorry, but he called it an oeuvre, Luke Fischer oeuvre. So this is book four. And book four takes place all in Mexico, which is the first one, almost in a way, the first one I had the guts to just leave in Mexico because I'm a big fan of road books. And so Luke was always going somewhere. And I said, well, I think I'm just going to leave in Mexico kind of thing. So I started this one about a year ago. I'm not a fast writer, but I started it about a year ago on my last trip to Mexico. And yeah, it just came out last week and it's just doing really well. Like people are just digging it. So I'm super happy.
So I've been to PV. I went on my honeymoon to PV, Puerto Vallarta,
Yep.
because the entire um, island of Jamaica shut down the day of my honeymoon. So
Wow.
we switched it up and we went to Puerto Vallarta because that's where um, The Bachelor, uh, Spring Fling, or whatever it is filmed. And my wife and I saw it and we were like, man, those beaches are really nice. And there are lizards everywhere and it looks really interesting and weird. And we went there and we stayed at, I want to say, the Fiesta Americana, which
Oh,
is up in the hills where
okay.
they filmed The Predator.
They filmed The Predator up there?
Yes, The Predator was filmed in Puerto Vallarta,
I had no
up in the
idea.
up in the hills, and it's considered the Mexican version of Beverly Hills. It's the Mexican Beverly Hills.
Oh, yes.
And
Hmm.
so we had a terrific time. And one thing that struck me when you and I first internet met, when we became internet friends,
Mhm.
was that you were in Puerto Vallarta and you were having a delightful time. And I remembered all those fun and delightful places. So I was thrilled that Luke Fischer was set in Puerto Vallarta.
I mean, I love Mexico. I just love it. And
Yeah.
this is actually the first year ever. I was there in April again. First year ever that my wife joined me. She just never had any interest in it. And one time I came home from work and I said, I think I got to go to Mexico. And she said, I want to go with you. And I went, oh, um, okay. Right.
Wait,
So
your wife didn't go with you that first time?
no, this is the very first time she's went, right? So no, I've went with. In fact, last year I went with my daughter, which was awesome.
Mm,
I went with friends down there, and I'm not sure why I love this place. I think I just figured it out. I love the location and stuff, but I also love the people. The
mhm,
people are amazing. And as my Spanish just gets a little bit better, I need to take some more classes. And I get to meet more locals and have conversations. And it's just, they're some of the friendliest, nicest people I know, and
mhm,
I always get into these things. And now PV I like a lot. That's where I started. In fact, the place you mentioned, the Beverly Hills of PV, I mentioned, I think in Sayulita, I forget the name of it kind of thing, but I mentioned that part of the town. But I often go away from there. So I go south to a little place called Melaki, or north a bit is Bucerias and Sayulita. And Sayulita is this kind of old hippie surfing joint. It's really hilarious. If you ever wonder where all the really tanned, leathered California surfers go, I think they end up in Sayulita. And so I spent a little bit of time there, and it was very funky and cool. And I was writing a book, and I said, well, why don't I put part of it in Sayulita? So it was just a good place for locations, and a really good vibe to it. Yeah.
yeah, it's dynamic, right? The Pacific coast of Mexico it has desert, it has just crashing waves, it's got earthquakes, and it's got jungle. It really lends itself to sort of a dramatic setting. And I think you did a really good job capturing it. Obviously, you're eating the Luke Fisher character is eating nothing but tacos the entire way. So this lends the question for the audience. Luke Fisher drinks Pacificos, tequila, and eats just nothing but tacos
Pretty much.
throughout the entire book. Where are the best tacos on the Pacific coast of Mexico that you've found? Because I'll tell you a better place.
Well, I'll say something really funny first, but then I'll go into that because, like, it's my wife's very first time in Mexico, and she discovered that she didn't like tacos. And I went, "Wow, are you ever in the wrong country?" Like, I'm sorry. I was
Also,
like, what are you gonna do here? What are you gonna eat? We had to find her hamburguesa, with queso, cheeseburgers, you know. So, um,
what is wait, what is not liking tacos look like conceptually? Does she not like the tortilla? Does she not like the vegetables? What is the
they just do nothing for her. She doesn't like the taste of them. She doesn't like the smell of them. She doesn't like whatever. And we stayed at this place when I was down in Manalaki, that was right next to a taco restaurant. And so
yeah,
every morning you smelled them frying, which I loved, and she hated
yes.
kind of thing. So I'm again like, it's okay, it's okay. So here's the thing. Very first time we went to Mexico, way back in the waybacks, I found a map of all the best street tacos in PV.
Nice.
I really like street food a lot. And I just don't, there's a reason I don't really do resorts either. I stay in little weird
Mm.
places that are 20 bucks a night that other people wouldn't stay in. But I love street food, and I have somehow a strong constitution. I never get sick. So I don't know.
Oh,
But
good for you.
the best tacos I've had are the street tacos. And I couldn't even, they're not named. They're just some place. I'm just walking down some street or in a market or something like that. And there's an abuelito, grandma, and she's just got the corn going and she's frying up the stuff. And oh, my favorite, and it's getting harder to find a good one, is a fish taco because I love a really good fish taco because, and I don't like the like in North America and Canada too, they make all the fish tacos with breaded fish, but I
Yeah.
want to just like a big chunk of tuna or marlin or whatever they're called in
Hmm.
the fish taco, and the toppings are just always amazing. They're like fresh onions, cabbage, lots of cilantro, like just and salsas and guacamole. Uh, Everything's super fresh. I just love the fresh. And you eat three of them, and it's like $3 or something. It's so cheap. And
Yep.
you drink two Pacificos, and you're good. That's my
Yes,
recipe.
my wife is obsessed with fish tacos. Wherever
Really?
we go, she always orders the fish tacos. And it is a constant competition in my house. There are two things that we seek to find the best of. They are fish tacos
Yeah.
and onion rings.
Oh,
And at one point, there was a Hawaiian restaurant that served Hawaiian cuisine that had the best onion rings and the best fish tacos. And then it
no.
closed and we were devastated. And it was within 10 minutes of our house. We were completely devastated. It was very hard. It was very hard on us. And
Well,
as you've said, it's transitioned with fish tacos to fried fish.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So was the one in the Hawaiian joint, was it fried fish or was it fresh?
It was fresh fish. It was a white fish. It
Oh, yeah.
was cooked, but it had a lot of Hawaiian seasoning, and
Oh,
I
good.
believe it had sort of a pineapple salsa associated with it. It
Nice.
was very delicious. The onion rings, I'm not sure what they did better than other people do with their onion rings, but whatever it was, their onion rings were far superior. And it closed down. It's really a bummer. It's been replaced by a Greek restaurant called Mama Eugenie's, and I love Greek food, so
Me too. Yeah.
it's a real boon for me, but obviously a
Yeah.
bummer for the wife.
Was that your pick for the tacos and rings pick?
No,
You said
no, the best place that I found in Puerto Vallarta that had tacos
mhm.
was this beautiful restaurant right on the beach
Hmm,
that had a bar that sort of stretches out on the beach, and they had octopus tacos.
nice.
And I
Yeah.
have never had octopus cooked so well and
Mm,
so tender
yes.
and
Yeah.
so spectacular. And
Pulpa. Yeah.
I can't remember the name of the place, but those were the best tacos I've ever had.
Wow. Well, I mean, there's a lot of like, I mean, those places you describe, I mean, if it's along the Malecon there, the ones
Hmm.
that stretch out onto the beach and stuff like that, some of them are just amazing. And I think it's octopus's pulpa or something. I learned all the different,
Yeah.
names and stuff like that. And Al Pastor, I think, is the one with pineapple in it, which is
Yeah.
lovely too. But I want just onion rings. Yes, very hard to find a perfect, good, crispy, light onion ring. Up
Yes.
here, is A&W Canadian or American?
I believe A&W is actually an American,
It
um,
is. Okay.
but it's dead here. In
Oh,
fact, I think in my most recent novel, I describe a gutted out A&W in in North Dakota.
oh, that's perfect. Oh man, that's perfect. I think I've been to that one. You know, we can talk about books, or we can just change this into the food channel. But
Yes.
the
Well,
the
no,
the onion
no.
rings,
Yes.
A&W onion rings. I'll just say A&W onion rings. Shout out to them. If they want to give me a sponsorship, I'm fine. They're actually some of the best fast food onion rings. I'll say. Okay.
Really?
Yes. Yep.
Nice.
Up here,
Nice.
anyways. So yeah. Yeah.
Well, I bring up the food because, of course, Luke Fischer in his jaunt through his sort of, I'll call it a stumble,
Mm.
through Pacific Coast, Mexico, does a lot of eating
Yep.
and he does a lot of drinking.
Yep.
And I frankly love the detective who does a lot of drinking and a lot of eating. And I think there's not enough of it anymore. And I think it's underappreciated that even Raymond
Mm.
Chandler mostly focused on the drinking and on the drinks and on the observation of the setting and of the restaurants and all those things. There is really not enough in the books I read of people languishing on the food.
Mhm.
Like if we're going to go somewhere, and this is one thing that Alex, my friend and author of School of Homer and Murder with a Glass of Malvasia does,
Mm.
because he sets those in Greece. He focuses on the Greek food and
Oh,
tries
nice.
to capture it and inspire it. And I think that's terrific that you do that with Luke Fischer and that you inspire a sense of place and a sense of excitement about a place. And it's very fun.
Well, places are so much about food, right? Now, part
Oh
of it
yeah.
is like I'm a cook. I'm a decent cook, and when I think about, there's often places like first time I went to Mexico, I came back and I said to my wife Carrie, I said like, you know what, tacos up here they have no resemblance to what actually tacos are. What actually tacos are, and I started making fresh salsas and all this kind of stuff like that. So I'm always coming back. And so in the very first Luke Fisher book, Surf City Acid Drop, um, I put some food in there, and all these reviews start coming up about people. Oh man, we're just so hungry when we read your books and stuff. And and then I remember in the second one, Manistee, which happens in Michigan mostly. I had a reader say, "Where's all the Pacificos?" Like they were pissed off I didn't have enough Pacificos in the book, right? So food, I love food. I like to write about food. I like to kind of like that whole senses thing, right? Like
Yes.
there's sight, there's smell, there's taste, there's texture. And I like to put that in, not in kind of like sort of a purple prose kind of way, but I got to go back a little bit. I wanted to tell you this story just about a little bit about, because I think it's a dad lit story about where
Yeah.
Luke Fisher came from. Luke Fisher started probably before I even started writing him in a really dad lit place in a gym where I'm in a locker room and some guy and me, stranger, don't even know the guy, we're talking about stuff. And we start talking about books. Who knows why? People think dads don't talk about books. We were both dads. We were talking books.
Talking about books all the time.
Yeah. And he said, like, what are you reading? I said, well, I really like Joe Lansdale. I fell in love with Joe Lansdale books, all the Hap and Leonard stuff. I was ripping through them all. And he goes, oh, if you like Joe Lansdale, you got to read James Crumley. And I go, never heard of the guy, right? So I go home from this gym and I get a Crumley book. I think it was The Last Good Kiss or whatever it's called. And I started reading it and I was like, wow, this is all the stuff I like, and part of it was that kind of 70s neo noir, whether it's
Mhm.
Elliot Gould in Altman's Long Goodbye, or what's his name, Paul Newman and Harper. Like there's all these kind of just these vibes, or even Nicholson in Chinatown. Like someone said, some of the books feel like Chinatown, and I go, that's the stuff I like.
Mhm.
And we don't see, almost like what you just said recently, I don't see much of it. We have the detectives that are alcoholics and they're getting over the bottle and they got struggles and stuff like that. Well, Crumley has this guy named C.W. Segru. Have you ever read Crumley?
No.
Yeah, there's one book. He's as good novelists are. He's not always great. When he's great, and sometimes he's okay. But he's got this guy. He's a hard drinking, smoking, fighting, swearing kind of guy. No apologies. And I go, you know what? If I'm going to create somebody, he's gonna enjoy a beer. He's going to enjoy some tacos, and he's not going to go to AA. He's not going to whatever, and then I had to kind of go, and he knows how to fight because I like guys that know how to fight. So
Yeah.
in Luke's background, he used to do some boxing in Montreal and stuff like that. So I kind of go make him tough,
Hmm.
And I want to say, I just sometimes the reviews come in, I just laugh. Right? There's a review came in from Lars. Oh shoot, is his last name Walker? I'm trying to remember, but Lars has reviewed the books before, and he said like Luke's style seems to be he just sort of like drinks and eats and doesn't do much, and then someone rankles him, and so then he all of a sudden then he gets mad and starts fighting.
It's,
That was his MO. He just drinks and eats and then he does stuff, right? It's like, I don't know, sure, okay. So yeah, yeah.
I
So I
don't,
mean, it's.
yeah,
I wanted to create a character. I realize I'm creating entertainment.
oh
I
yeah,
do.
it's very entertaining. Yes, absolutely. Uh, I don't think that Luke just gets drunk and fights people. I think that's an understatement. I I don't know. You read my review, which I think brings up both of these things, that he eats and then he drinks and then he fights people. But this gets into a bunch of things about stuff that you and I have talked about in the past, which is certain characteristics of Canadian novelists. So
Mhm.
you pointed me to your friend Bob Armstrong, who I'm
Yep,
going to be interviewing soon, and I read his one of his earlier works called Dadolescence,
I love the film.
which, by the way, is as you describe it, an attempt at the great Canadian novel. 100%. I can't wait to talk to him about it.
Yeah, Bob's a great guy. Yeah.
Yes, but I think and I sent you a message about this, and I proposed we talk about it, which is that Luke Fischer is a very chill expat
Yeah.
from a Canadian setting, and he reminds me of all the Canadians that I met when I went to the Dominican Republic, and they
Oh
all
yeah.
own they all own restaurants, and they're all very annoyed that the waitresses can get pregnant and then get full pay, and then they have to pay them for the duration, and they can't fire them because even though they're very compassionate, loving Canadian people,
Yeah.
they're like, how am I supposed to run a where am I? First of all, now I got to get a new waitress.
Oh
Second
no.
of all, how am I supposed to run a business? But they take it in a very polite Canadian way,
Mhm.
whereas Americans, I think, would be more burn the place down for insurance money, uh, and and move on to some sort of drug concern. Uh, I mean, really, I think that's what I've found is the kind of cultural difference. The Canadians are like, oh man, now I got to go find another waitress, and Americans would be
Well, I
like,
mean,
how can I
and
avoid this?
I play with those tropes, and there's Canadian tropes too that we're all polite and we're all. There was an interview with me at Crime Fiction Lover that they said Craig Terlson is a very congenial Canadian. It's like, oh, that
Oh
stereotype again.
no,
But
oh no.
I am kind of congenial. It's true, effervescent. There's a word. Very
You're
effervescent.
effervescent.
Very effervescent.
I
But
would. I've never smelled you, so I would never describe you as
oh,
effervescent.
you would. So the thing is, it's like I didn't want to make like I'm actually what's I'm gonna confess. I'm on your show. I'm gonna confess.
Yeah,
I'm
confess.
learning about Luke Fisher as I write him
Of
because
course, yeah.
Luke has got some issues. Like it was my son who actually came up with a name because I had a name for the
Mhm.
character a long time ago. Surf City Acid Drop was 10 years ago. I had a name for the character. My son said, that's stupid. I don't like it. And he's a pretty smart guy. And so he came up with Luke Fisher, which he told me later was based on two guys that he knew. And he fishes for people. That's kind of fit, right? He
Yeah.
looks for people and stuff like that. But what I'm realizing, with the help of actually, I learn a lot from readers. I go, oh, never thought of that. Is he's lost. He's very lost.
Oh, yeah, that's very clear.
He doesn't know where home is. The book 3 Minute
Mhm.
Hero, he goes back home. He doesn't know what to do with it, but he's very lost. So he's an expat, and he kind of thinks that he's cooler than he is because or
Mhm.
cooler or chill because he's got a lot of anger issues. And I'm discovering more and more about him. And I think the one thing, even though, yes, it's fun, um, some reviewers said, and I think they were totally correct, that it might have been Trang again because he's a really good reviewer of stuff.
Oh
Um,
yeah, you see,
he,
he's a
he's got
very
some insight that blows me away. He said, "Well,
yes.
the real world is creeping into Fisher's life because
Mhm.
Fisher has this sort of Xanadu type Southern beer on the beach attitude, but the book Sayulita Sucker has human trafficking in it.
Yeah.
And there's not a lot of humor there, but what was seeping in there and the rage that Fisher had as I discover him is maybe a bit of the rage of the author,
Mhm.
letting himself open up a little bit to this weird ass world we're in right now. Because I will say I treat Fisher a bit like a fable. I'm very, I think the words canny or something like that. I don't, I'm always curious, when do you think these books take place? People go, oh, it's in the 70s. I say, oh no, it's the 90s. Oh no, it's early 2000s. And I never say. And
Mhm.
I try not to have markers. He mentions shows or cars sometimes, but I try to have no markers of time because Fisher is just existing, almost fable-like. And I think that was in the first three books. And this is the first book where I said, there's some bad stuff out there. And Fisher's
Mhm.
going to run right up against it. And so, yes, there are parts that are funny and entertaining because I like that in a book. I want to be entertaining, but there's some real stuff there about why why would a person want to own another human?
Mhm.
And that kind of cuts me open a little bit. And so I let that out a little this time, which is very different.
So, would you say, because, and we can get into Thomas, by the way, because Thomas and I had a discussion about his characters and the fact that he, as a father, wrote a book about two effectively single men who got to do whatever they wanted,
Yeah.
and that as an element of fantasy. Do you think that Luke Fisher is an avatar of Craig Terlson? Or do you think that rather Craig Terlson has started to seep into Luke Fisher's consciousness, and that it's a really a question of your kind of inescapable morality that permeates the hero?
Wow. That's such a good question. And I will start by saying that my lovely wife, who I've been with almost 40 years now, has
Yes.
told me many times, dear, you are not Luke Fisher. I think she told me that in Mexico too. Look, you're not Luke Fisher. I know, I'm not Luke Fisher, I know. And so there might be a little bit of the kind of Avatar thing going on. I mentioned some of those 70s neo noir heroes. Like one of my very favorites is Elliot Gould in
Yeah.
Old Man's Gone Goodbye. There's just I've seen that movie so many times, and I just love the vibe of it. And I love the vibe of that character, and how he says, "Eh, it's okay with me." He's the chillest guy ever, right? And I love that vibe. And I try to be chill. I'm not really. I try
Well,
to be
you're a
kind
dad, buddy.
of, dads can't be chill. The dads who are chill are not doing their job.
No.
'Cause you can't be chill as a dad. And so it's a great question because I don't think I'm role playing avatar wise with Fisher.
Yeah.
He is. I try to be in every book. I think he gets a little bit more three dimensional and real to me. That he lives this life, but I think your second thing is probably more true, that definitely my sense of who I am, of how I view the world
Hmm.
is seeping in, you know. And I think that I'm really angry at some of the things that are happening in the world right now, politically, in terms of economics, in terms of pain, in terms of suffering, and
Hmm.
it seeps in. And so yeah, you're right, the morality seeps in. And so what is Luke's morality, or why does Luke do what he wants to do, and why does Benno, who is his benefactor, I call him in the book, why does he want Luke to do stuff? Because Luke will do something just because he needs to do it. It's kind of a little bit of that knight errant thing,
Yeah.
but his code, I'm not quite sure I understand what his code is right now. But Sayulita, and somebody said this to me that I think is maybe true. Sayulita is turning a corner, even though I will say, listeners out there, I've created all these books as standalones. They don't go in order, to me, anyways. And you could jump into Sayulita and just be there. I think, well, Sayulita is the first thing you read, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And you didn't feel lost right there.
No, no. I just assumed that Luke Fisher's been hanging out on the beach in Mexico having a great time this whole
Yeah,
time. And I
yeah,
was like, hey, great. I mean, I'm envious. That's
right.
terrific.
Yeah, yeah.
So-
And so, I'm kind of dancing around it. I hope I've answered some of it, but I think that his sense of morality is seeping in, and I'm allowing him to seep in as like, look, Fisher kind of gave me a writing career. This is the thing, you know,
Mhm.
like all the other stuff I've said before, maybe even on your previous show about that I started as a literary writer, and that part is still very much a part of me. Um, but when I started writing Fisher, people started reading it and they're waiting for the next Fisher book. And I go, what? You're waiting for me to write another book? That's weird. Um,
That's
and
great. I mean,
yeah,
that's awesome.
yeah. So,
Yeah, I mean, this reading Fisher, because I previously read Bluegrass Samurai.
well, you did. Oh, that right. Of course you did. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. And Bluegrass Samurai is a very interesting book, and I think you and I both talked about how it figures into the sort of speculative literary tradition.
Yeah, totally.
Um, and so when I sat down to read um,
By a leader.
Sayulita
Mhm.
Sucker, I was really taken by a couple of things, and this is both because I just finished a manuscript for a thriller,
Mm.
and I also read another author's thriller for the podcast, and I was talking to Alex about his book, Murder with a Glass of Malvasia, which is set in Greece. And I was really taken by the um, idea of violence in novels and the application of violence by the author and violence as a value in a work of fiction. And I'm also reading Gabino Iglesias, The Devil Takes You Home
Oh, which,
as
yeah,
well,
okay.
which which
Yeah,
which also explores this.
yeah.
And and you know, Luke Fisher doesn't carry a gun.
Hmm.
And whenever, and I thought about this and I thought about how interesting it is because when Luke Fisher starts to carry a gun, it is an uncomfortable accessory. It's something he doesn't want on
Yeah,
him. And I think my read of that was because of the finality of decision making when it comes to a gun. That when you have to make a decision with a gun, it has a lot of finality, which then got me thinking about all of these authors. And whenever a gun is introduced into a book, and even myself, and I love guns, I think they're terrific. I'm an American. This is a disability that we suffer from. But at the same time, whenever a gun is introduced into a work of fiction that I'm working on, I always make sure the character has an emotional feeling about it. They
yeah,
have an emotional feeling about carrying it. They have emotional feeling about seeing it. They they and it runs the gamut. They're never just, oh, there's a gun. Oh, now I've got a gun. You've
yeah.
got a gun. They've got a gun. You know. And um it was interesting because in reading your most recent Luke Fischer book, that comes up with Luke Fischer. When he carries a gun, he's always sort of feeling the discomfort of it. It always makes him uncomfortable. He doesn't want it. Uh he gets it that it has a purpose. But even when he has to deal with a scumbag, and there are a lot of scumbags in the most recent Luke Fischer
Yeah,
novel, it weighs very heavily on him.
yeah. Well, the finality, that's such a really good way to say it. I've never thought of it that way. That
Yeah.
finality decision. And I think that it's probably, again, I got so many ways I could respond to this because um, in the first Fisher book, again, Surf City, a similar thing happens. There's no spoilers, but you're right that Luke doesn't carry a gun, but often he finds himself in possession of one.
Yep.
And turns out, like, you know, same as fighting, Luke's really good at it. And Luke's pretty good with guns too. He doesn't like them, but if he ends up with one, and you're right, it's like there's some regret because I'm kind of going like as an author, you're maybe just as a human even, you're kind of going the finality of ending someone's life. Like there's that great line in Unforgiven where Clint is
Oh
talking to
yeah.
the young person, says, "You take away everything he ever had, and everything he's going to have." And like, I forget what the exact line is, but it's just this brutal
Yes.
line of like, "You have
Ah, it's a
taken away
beautiful line.
his life, right?" And I go,
Yes.
"Holy crap!" And so you can't take that lightly. And I tell you, I read some books that just blam blam blam, and often they're very graphic too. And you go, "Well, that's just kind of dumb, you know."
Yeah.
And so I think that in some ways, the violence happens. I don't like that it does. No, that's not true. It's just sort of like I want there to be emotion attached to it, you
Yeah.
know, and it has to be. It has to be. And I'm not like a violent person. I've fired guns. I fired lots of guns. My dad was a hunter.
Mm.
My 12th birthday, I was given a shotgun, you know, and so and I fired at the range and I've killed animals and stuff like that. So I know what it's like to fire guns and stuff. But it's interesting. I want to say a couple things about this, including, I don't know if I mentioned this last time. I mean, I'm one of those, what do you call those guys? They go to church and stuff, you know?
Christians?
And- yeah. Well,
I
yeah,
don't know.
yeah, I
I don't
call
know.
them
I
that.
go to synagogue, so I'm not
Well,
clear.
so you understand what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I'm busy. I'm busy on
I'm a
Sunday
person of
doing
faith. I'm a
things.
person of faith. I didn't know you went to synagogue. That's very cool.
I do.
Um, so I'm a person of faith and someone who's a very good friend of mine, and she's a writer too. And she says, you go up there, because I'll even preach sometimes, right? You go up there and you preach stuff, and it's pretty good. And you write all these crime books. And how do you, she wasn't being critical, but she goes, how do you, And, and I told you this story earlier when we were texting about my granddaughter who's actually staying over tonight. And she says, why do you, and she didn't even know what the word was, right? She goes, why do you write all these violent books? And I said, well, you don't think I'm violent, do you? She goes, no. She goes, you're like a person who cuddles up on the couch with a stuffy kind of person, right? And
Oh,
which
your
is lovely to
granddaughter.
say, but she wanted to
Yes.
figure out. She wanted to figure out why are you doing this? And the answer I gave her, which I think fits into this, and it fits into the idea of the fable, is that I loved growing up the stories of knights with lances and swords and all this kind of stuff, this kind of
Mm.
whatever. And I feel like it's a bit like that. We have good, we have evil, and we have guns, and they're the gun violence that I do is again a lot of the kind of violence where when someone gets shot in a movie and they go arg, and they
Yeah.
grab their chest and I see a little bit of blood, a little blood out of the lip or something like that. Like none of the, I'm just not into the graphic stuff. If you want to write it, that's fine, but it's just not my jam. And so, but I really like what you said about there's this finality of decision, and definitely in Sayulita Sucker, Luke has to face into that. He has to
Yeah.
face
No,
into it.
there's a lot of it.
Yeah.
I this was this comes up a lot because I have scenes of violence in books that I've written. I've written
Mhm.
now two crime manuscripts and a horror manuscript, and then a science fiction manuscript. And one of the underlying things that when I write something, I like to write it as a conversation that I'm having with my daughter, who is now 4 years old.
Wow.
And I can't have that conversation with her. But I, as a parent, experience feelings and emotions and difficulties with things that are going on in the world. And so when I sit down to write, I think, how can I explain when my little girl gets old enough to understand
Mm,
things like the essential nature of truth or the essential challenge of being a partner or even the peril and impossibility of violence because
yeah,
my daughter's a 4 year old American little girl. The type of violence that is experienced elsewhere in the world is just, it's not the reality here. It's
yeah,
not something that she's ever going to experience. But I, as her father, who's a historian and a writer and a person who very passionately follows the news and has passionate attachments to, for example, Judaism and Jewish history,
yeah.
I'm very attuned to these ideas. And I don't want to pass on paranoia, but at the same time, how do I explain values like to me, the necessity of self-defense or those sort of things.
Well,
So
it's the reality of it. Like, like you're right. Like around, that's a really good way to think about it because how do we, for those we care about, definitely, like, I mean, you're right. I have these grandkids that they don't experience the kind of stuff that people are, and notably kids are experiencing in the world.
yeah.
And it's a reality. And I mean, again, I will say, I mean, your faith, my faith share some of the same books, and there's some really violent stuff in there, some really,
Yes,
right?
quite, quite, yes.
And I'm sitting there sometimes in church and they'll read something. I'm like, oh boy, we're gonna explain that? you know Babies getting their heads smashed against rocks, and that's why I used to read a lot of Cormac McCarthy as well. And
Yes.
McCarthy is, or another one, what's amazing is
James
Clarence.
Michener, by the way. James Michener is the other one
Yeah.
who have you ever read The Source by James Michener?
No. No.
Oh, well, you have to read The Source.
Okay.
That
Oh,
it just put everything down.
really? Okay.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes. The
I've actually
Source
never
by
read a
James
Michener
Michener.
book, so I will. The
Oh,
Source.
really?
Never have. No, I will now.
James Michener, Pulitzer Prize winning historian,
Mhm.
um, went out and started at the age of 40, much like myself, writing short stories.
Yeah.
And what he does is he sets the short stories thematically over time as a way to present the history of a place.
Mhm.
And so the source is his description through short stories of the history of monotheism. And
Whoa.
he starts before monotheism and before the non-sacrifice of Isaac
Yeah.
on the hill. And it's one of the most spectacular books I've
Oh,
ever read in
but
my
when I'm
time.
done this interview, I'm getting it. That's it. I'm getting it.
Yes, yes,
Totally
it's
have to, because, like, I
absolutely
mean,
spectacular.
well, and what it teaches me too, going back to, like, I mean, kids are extremely resilient,
Mhm.
and I believe that they can take stuff. It's kind of funny. I read big chunks of Samurai Bluegrass to my granddaughter. I kind of skipped over the violent parts, but saying, like, people die, and people die in my books, stuff like that. And she's 12 years old now. She's a big history buff. and she listens to so many podcasts, and she like will correct me on my history sometimes, which I love, right? And we were talking at breakfast the other day, and she started talking about I think it was the Mayans or the Aztecs or something like that, and the Spaniards came, and they kind of thought they were gods or something like that. So the first group, they ate them, and she just tells me
Oh
this. They ate
yeah.
them. I was like, what? You know, and she just kind of said it like it was a Tuesday. Yeah, they ate them.
Yeah.
Like,
Same with the Captain Cook in Hawaii.
right, right.
Yes.
You know, and so it's and part of our nature, you know, is there. The violence, the
Mm.
potential for violence is in our nature. So part of me kind of goes, and I explain this sometimes when, like, I teach writing a little bit sometimes, right? And I kind of go, you can't have stories where like nothing bad happens. Because like what? Like it's just there's nothing there.
Who wants that?
Who wants that? And part of it is someone
Yes.
asked me once, why do you read? And I do read some really bleak books.
Yeah.
Why do you read such bleak books? And I go, well, because I can face the world a little bit better that way. I
Mm.
spent a I spent a Christmas holiday reading Blood Meridian once. That's all I read.
Yeah.
Merry Christmas. All I did over my holidays is read Blood Meridian, and it was the darkest, bleakest, most amazing experience because it allowed me to look at the world through the lens of fiction and went, yeah, we lived in a fucked up place, and violence is everywhere, and how shall we live? And you
Mhm.
end up kind of going, how should we live? We want kindness. We're seeking out kindness, and that is one of my big gurus, someone on Twitter today asked, who would you love to sit down and have a coffee with? And for me, it's George Saunders. Because you listen to what Saunders talks about kindness, and I think he's a brilliant, brilliant writer. And I think about that in my own little way. It doesn't, I have lots of faults and peccadillos and stuff like that. But to be kind, and I don't know, I feel like sometimes that might creep in to Fisher a little bit.
Mhm.
There's a sense of kindness. You call it morality as well. I'm not quite sure, but it's like I'll end with Flannery O'Connor because she's also a major influence on me. Some of her books are really deeply violent, or short stories,
Mhm.
and people would challenge her and say, "Well, why don't you write some good Christian stories?" You know, and O'Connor's quote was something like, "Well, that's all I'm writing." You know, and it's like, oh, okay,
That's
it's
some
like,
dark. That's some dark shit there, Flannery.
right? And so yeah, have you read the book of Joshua? Like, have you read some of this stuff? It's like, yeah. So, anyways, it's a great question. It's a great thing to think about both as writers and readers and as dads. Because we're dads
Yes.
and we're talking to our kids and who we're in a relationship with. It's like, hey, it's a violent world. Yeah.
Yeah, and what do you do about it? And
What
how
do
do
you
you
do?
approach it? And how do you contend with it?
Mhm.
Well, Craig, you have a granddaughter to get back to. Do you want to plug some books to close us
Sure.
out?
Yeah. Um, let's plug Sayulita Sucker because it just came out. That is my new one, and it's I always say it's available where you get books, which means it's available on Amazon. Okay,
Yeah, that's where
let's be
everybody
honest
gets
about it, kind of
books.
thing. That's
Yes.
the main one I want to plug. You can read the whole series, the whole Fisher series. Like I say, you can start it wherever. Surf City Acid Drop is the first one with an amazing essay by Thomas Trang, just to close it out with Trang. And I don't know,
Wait. Trang got an essay in Surf City Acid Drop?
not just an essay,
Wow.
fabulous essay
Wow.
on crime fiction. I will say he was writing it, right? And he sends me this note. He goes, I'm about 3 pages into this, and I haven't mentioned your book yet. I say, just go for it. And so he actually, yeah, he writes about Fisher, but he also writes just about crime fiction in
I'm
a
surprised. I'm
really
surprised he ever finished it. He's a
well,
perfectionist. It
he,
takes him
he
forever.
really is. He really is. I love it. I want to plug. Why not? Let's plug Thomas because he needs it too.
Oh yeah, he has a
Um,
beautiful book from
Dark,
Shotgun Honey.
Dark Neon and Dirt, published by Shotgun Honey, Shotgun Ron. I know you're Ron, publisher. Is a hell of a book,
Yeah,
and
it's terrific.
he is a hell of a writer.
Yeah.
I kind of drink his prose, and what he's doing with his sense of place, his place being LA, so
Mhm.
that's the other one kind of thing. And whatever you're writing, I mean, come on, like get those books out there, Dan. We need to read.
I, you
Yeah.
know, well, this is what I'll say. Currently, Cursed at the Hanging Pine Inn has been placed in the hands of Big Five editors. As to whether or not they will bequeath me with a mid-list contract of, you get paid after we earn back expenses.
Yeah.
I have no idea. But I'm hoping to get something in front of the reading population as soon as possible. The funny thing is, I would send people my novels for free, and
Mm,
I'm at this point because when you set about to climb a mountain, right?
mm.
And then you see another peak, and then you're like, oh man, well, I'm already up here. Uh, that's,
Well, it's why a lot of people don't finish novels, to be honest. They're
oh
they're
yeah,
they're they're the marathon. They are
yeah,
the marathon, and I think, quite frankly, another confession time. Some people are trying to put them out too quickly, and
hmm,
you can't. I mean, Sayulita Sucker is not a long book, but it took a long time to write. And I
yeah,
think if you really, this is going to sound so whatever, but like if you really put your back into it, it takes quite a while to craft a book, and it takes a lot of patience because
oh yeah,
it's a lot of
incredible
words, a lot of
patience.
stuff going on, and everything you write asks you more questions. Well, what about this? What about this? Right? So,
Yeah,
yeah. But I
yeah,
think I'll say this, Dan. What I've read of yours, I love what you're doing voice wise, and I'm waiting for. You see my shelves behind me. I'm waiting for your book on my shelves.
well, thank you. Hopefully it is on the way soon. I love just being part of the community and engaging with everybody and making Dad Lit a thing, man. We're going to usher in the revolution of lit by dads, for dads, and about dads. And
It happens one dad at a time.
yes, it happens one dad at a time. Well, thank you, Craig, for coming on the Dad Lit Pod. Obviously, second time. So great to hear from you. And Sayulita Sucker,
I need a
terrific, terrific Luke Fischer novel. Go out and get it.